She thought it was just another flight, until the moment a flight attendant refused to serve her. What happened next left the entire cabin speechless, and by the time the truth came out, it was too late. Stick around to see how one small decision changed everything for both of them. Before we start the story, comment below to tell us where you're watching from, and if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more. The airport buzzed with energy as people moved about, announcements echoing across the terminals. Passengers lined up to board, some clutching coffee cups, others glancing at their phones. Among them was Amara Johnson, a poised black woman in her late 40s. She waited calmly, standing out for her quiet confidence and grace. She wore a classic, understated outfit, holding a sleek bag with a small, nearly hidden airline emblem stitched onto the side. Her expression was one of patience, though her eyes held a certain focus, a hint of quiet observation as she watched the flow of people around her. Meanwhile, Lisa, one of the flight attendants, prepared to welcome the passengers on board. She was efficient and confident in her role, greeting each person with a bright smile and friendly banter, seemingly able to gauge a passenger's status at a glance. To those she deemed important, a businessman in a sharp suit, a stylish couple discussing their next vacation, she offered a particularly warm welcome, a noticeable eagerness in her tone. Her cheerfulness, however, didn't extend to everyone. As her gaze drifted over to Amara, there was a subtle, almost unconscious dismissal in her eyes. Lisa's smile faltered slightly, and she offered only a quick, polite nod before moving on, not giving Amara a second thought. Amara noticed, but her calm expression remained unchanged. She stepped onto the plane and made her way to her seat in business class, settling herself with an air of quiet composure. As she took her seat, she glanced around, her gaze lingering on the crew as they worked, mentally noting the details of the cabin and its atmosphere. While other passengers fussed with their belongings or chatted, Amara reached into her bag, pulling out a slim notebook and pen. She opened it to a blank page and placed it on the tray table, as if preparing to make notes or observations. When Lisa walked by, her demeanor shifted again. She seemed even more dismissive, casting a brief, indifferent glance toward Amara, before focusing on another passenger who needed help with their luggage. Lisa barely acknowledged Amara's presence, seemingly viewing her as just another ordinary traveler, someone who didn't warrant any special attention. Amara watched this interaction, her expression remaining calm, though her gaze was sharp. Without a word, she lifted her pen and jotted a few notes in her notebook, her writing smooth and deliberate. As the boarding process continued, Lisa continued to interact warmly with the other passengers, making small talk, laughing at jokes, and ensuring everyone around Amara felt welcomed and comfortable. The subtle divide in her treatment was clear, but no one seemed to notice. Amara, meanwhile, took in every detail with silent patience, her pen moving occasionally as she made notes. Her quiet observations and dignified calm gave nothing away, leaving no hint of her true position. As the plane began to taxi, Amara glanced up briefly from her notebook, observing the flurry of activity among the flight crew as they finalized their pre-flight tasks. She closed her notebook and slipped it neatly into her bag, settling back with a look of calm anticipation. The cabin soon filled with the gentle hum of the engines, and Lisa and the other attendants moved briskly down the aisles, making last-minute checks. Once the seatbelt sign turned off, Amara leaned forward and politely caught Lisa's attention as she walked past. With a calm smile, Amara asked if she could have a glass of water, mentioning she'd like to refresh herself a bit before starting some work. Lisa paused, giving Amara a quick, almost mechanical smile, and replied with a practiced tone, "I'm afraid we'll be serving drinks after takeoff, ma'am." "Please wait until then." Her voice held a hint of impatience, and the warmth she offered to other passengers was notably absent. She moved on without waiting for a response, leaving Amara's request unacknowledged. Amara's expression didn't shift. She simply nodded to herself, her eyes following Lisa as she interacted with another passenger just a few seats away. There, Lisa's tone softened, her smile genuine as she checked on the needs of an older couple, assuring them that any requests they had would be taken care of shortly. Amara's gaze lingered, noting the stark difference in treatment, but she remained composed, the calm in her expression giving no clue of her thoughts. Instead, she watched with an air of patient curiosity, as if waiting to see what would happen next. A few moments later, Lisa returned, making her rounds with a tray of welcome drinks for the other business-class passengers. Amara watched as Lisa handed a glass of sparkling water to the businessman across the aisle, offering him a gracious smile and even a friendly comment about the smoothness of the flight. But when she passed Amara's row, she barely glanced in her direction, giving no indication that she remembered Amara's earlier request. Amara's eyes followed Lisa as she walked past without a word, the subtle but undeniable dismissal clear in her movements. Amara took a quiet, steadying breath, her calm never wavering. There was no sign of frustration, only a faint glint of something unspoken in her eyes, a look that hinted at layers of patience, perhaps even resilience. With a slight tilt of her head, she opened her notebook once more and made a brief, almost casual note, as if recording something entirely routine. The cabin continued to hum with the quiet sounds of flight, and as Lisa continued down the aisle, her indifference unbroken, Amara's expression held steady, thoughtful, observant, and waiting. As the flight continued to cruise smoothly at altitude, Amara remained settled in her seat, quietly observing the cabin. Occasionally she looked out the window, her face reflecting a calm that contrasted the subtle tension brewing around her. She glanced down at her notebook again, turning to a fresh page, and made a few notes with a graceful, unhurried stroke of her pen. After a while, Amara decided to make herself a bit more comfortable. She looked up, catching Lisa's eye as she moved up the aisle once more, this time adjusting trays and checking overhead bins. With a polite tone, Amara asked, "Could I trouble you for an extra pillow, please? I have a little work to do and it would help me stay comfortable." Lisa paused, giving Amara an almost imperceptible sigh, barely masking her reluctance. Her eyes flicked over Amara with a brief hint of annoyance before she responded, "I'm sorry, but we're very limited on pillows. They're typically reserved for passengers who request them ahead of time." Her tone was flat, dismissive, and final, as though Amara's request had been an inconvenience. Without waiting for a response, Lisa turned and continued down the aisle, leaving Amara's words hanging in the air. Amara simply watched her go, a faint, almost unreadable expression crossing her face. She leaned back, her gaze thoughtful, as if reflecting on the interaction. Around her, other passengers seemed oblivious to the quiet mistreatment, too absorbed in their own routines to notice the subtle dismissal. Lisa, meanwhile, continued to interact with others, her demeanor warmer and friendlier, particularly with those she perceived as high status or important. Moments later, another flight attendant, Mark, passed by Amara's seat, noticing her sitting quietly, her face calm but perhaps a bit uncomfortable. He approached her with a respectful nod, his manner attentive. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" he asked kindly, his tone gentle and genuinely concerned. Amara offered him a warm but subtle smile and nodded. "Thank you for asking," she replied smoothly, her voice calm yet carrying a weight that hinted at her authority. "I'm perfectly fine, just making a few observations about the service." Mark blinked, catching something in her tone, a depth that gave him pause. For a moment, he seemed to consider her words, glancing in the direction Lisa had gone, a subtle awareness dawning in his expression. With a nod, he quietly promised, "If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to let me know." Amara inclined her head in acknowledgement, her expression serene, while Mark walked away, casting one last thoughtful glance over his shoulder. Left alone again, Amara resumed her quiet observations, her gaze steady and composed as she returned to her notebook, making a few more notes with a soft, deliberate smile. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the flight attendants began their mid-flight service. Lisa returned to the aisle, carrying a tray with small refreshments and drinks for the business-class passengers. Her expression was composed, almost indifferent, as she moved efficiently from seat to seat, offering drinks with a polite, practiced smile. When she reached Amara's row, however, Lisa hesitated for the briefest of moments, her eyes flicking over Amara before she plastered on a smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked, in a tone that was professional, but noticeably cooler than the warmth she showed to others. Amara looked up, meeting Lisa's gaze directly. Her expression was calm and unfazed, yet there was a quiet firmness in her eyes. "Yes, thank you," she replied smoothly. "I'll take a glass of water, please." There was a pause, a beat too long, before Lisa finally handed her the drink, her demeanor still slightly restrained, as if she were going through the motions without genuine courtesy. Amara accepted the glass, giving Lisa a measured look that seemed to hold an unspoken question, a silent observation of how she was being treated. Lisa appeared slightly uncomfortable under Amara's steady gaze, her fingers twitching as if wanting to leave quickly. She gave a short nod before briskly moving on to the next passenger, her relief almost visible. As Amara sipped her water, she looked around the cabin once more, her face serene but her eyes sharp. She noticed Lisa stopping at another row where an elderly gentleman needed assistance. Lisa's demeanor softened noticeably, her tone warm and caring as she patiently adjusted his seatbelt and ensured he was comfortable. It was a contrast that didn't escape Amara's attention. Amara made another note in her notebook, her expression thoughtful, yet unreadable. She seemed to take her time with each word, as though recording every detail with precision. The faintest hint of a smile played at the corners of her mouth, a sign of calm resilience, as if she were collecting all these small, quiet moments for a reason only she knew. In the background, the cabin murmured with the low hum of conversations and the sound of passengers adjusting their seats. Amara continued to observe quietly, her demeanor composed and unfazed, as if biding her time. Her subtle, poised patience created a quiet tension that seemed to grow with every interaction, a sense that something significant was building just beneath the surface. And though Lisa moved confidently down the aisle, still oblivious, Amara's calm gaze followed her, unwavering and expectant, waiting for just the right moment. As the flight wore on, the soft glow of the cabin lights illuminated Amara's calm, focused face as she continued her quiet observations. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, though no one else seemed to feel it. Lisa went about her duties, still unaware of the watchful eyes that followed her every move. Eventually, Amara set down her notebook and decided to take a walk down the aisle to stretch her legs. She moved gracefully, greeting a few passengers with polite nods, her presence both composed and commanding, though never intrusive. When she reached the back of the business-class cabin, she paused near the galley, where Lisa was restocking supplies and chatting casually with another flight attendant. Lisa barely noticed Amara standing there at first, too absorbed in her conversation about weekend plans and a new restaurant she was excited to try. But when she finally turned and saw Amara, her smile faded slightly, replaced by a look of faint annoyance, as if she viewed Amara's presence as an interruption. "Yes, ma'am? Can I help you with something?" Lisa's tone was polite but noticeably impatient, and her expression held a hint of exasperation. Amara tilted her head, her expression thoughtful yet controlled. "I just wanted to inquire about your approach to customer service," she said in a smooth, even tone. Her words were polite, but there was a quiet firmness that hinted at something deeper, an authority that Lisa couldn't quite place. Lisa looked taken aback, caught off guard by the question. She let out a short laugh, clearly trying to brush it off. "Our service standards are high, of course," she replied, sounding rehearsed, as if reciting a line she'd repeated many times. "We strive to make all passengers feel comfortable and cared for." Amara nodded, her gaze unwavering, holding Lisa's eyes with a steady calm that seemed to unsettle her. "I'm glad to hear that," Amara said softly. "It's something I take quite seriously." There was a beat of silence, the words hanging in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Lisa shifted uncomfortably, sensing that there was something she wasn't grasping. an invisible line she was towing without understanding its significance. She gave a short, forced smile, then turned back to her task, eager to end the conversation and move on. Amara watched her for a moment longer, her expression thoughtful, as if considering her next move. Then, with a small, composed nod, she returned to her seat, leaving Lisa with a lingering sense of discomfort that she couldn't quite shake. The quiet tension in the cabin seemed to grow, an invisible current that only Amara and, perhaps, a few attentive passengers seemed to sense. Amara settled back into her seat, her face serene but her eyes reflecting a depth of patience, as though every interaction was simply adding another layer to a quiet but powerful revelation waiting to unfold. As Amara settled back into her seat, the subtle tension in the cabin continued to simmer beneath the surface. She opened her notebook again, flipping to a fresh page, and began jotting down a few final notes, her pen moving with calm precision. The other passengers were absorbed in their own worlds, blissfully unaware of the silent story unfolding between her and Lisa. A little while later, Mark, the senior flight attendant, made his way down the aisle, his presence as calm and attentive as ever. He stopped by Amara's seat, noticing the notebook and the composed expression on her face. With a gentle, respectful tone, he asked, "Is everything going well, ma'am? If there's anything I can assist you with, please let me know." Amara looked up, meeting his gaze with a warm smile, a stark contrast to the quiet firmness she had shown Lisa. "Thank you, Mark," she said, her tone kind and appreciative. "You've been very attentive." "I appreciate your professionalism," Mark offered a slight bow of acknowledgement, clearly pleased with her words. "It's our pleasure to make sure every passenger has a comfortable flight," he replied, with genuine sincerity that stood out from the rehearsed politeness often seen in service. As he moved on, Amara's eyes drifted back to Lisa, who was now in the middle of serving another row. Lisa's movements were efficient and composed, but there was a faint tension in her posture, a trace of discomfort lingering from her earlier conversation with Amara. Every now and then, her gaze darted over to Amara's seat, a flicker of uncertainty flashing in her eyes, as if trying to understand why this particular passenger had left her feeling slightly off balance. Amara, however, maintained her calm composure, each interaction quietly building towards something still hidden from view. Her demeanor held an air of quiet anticipation, as though she were waiting for the right moment. To anyone watching, she seemed relaxed and untroubled, but there was an undeniable depth in her gaze, a quiet strength that hinted at her true position, her silent power remaining concealed yet potent. Finally, as the flight neared its descent, an announcement crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to take a moment to recognize a very special guest on board today." The captain's voice echoed through the cabin, warm and respectful. "We are honored to have our CEO, Ms. Amara Johnson, joining us on this flight. We'd like to extend our thanks for her leadership and commitment to the values we hold dear." The announcement settled over the cabin like a wave, a moment of stunned silence as passengers turned to look at Amara with newfound recognition. A ripple of surprise moved through the cabin, and as the words sank in, Lisa's face went pale, her expression frozen in shock. She turned slowly, eyes wide as she stared at Amara, the full weight of her actions crashing down on her in an instant. Amara met her gaze calmly, a subtle, knowing smile playing at the corners of her lips, her composed expression unchanging. She didn't need to say a word. Her very presence, her quiet observations, and the respect shown by her fellow crew members all spoke volumes. Lisa stood rooted to the spot, a look of horrified realization dawning in her eyes as she understood far too late the significance of the woman she had treated so dismissively. The cabin remained in a stunned silence, passengers exchanging curious glances as they absorbed the announcement. Amara's serene demeanor seemed to magnify her presence, a quiet power emanating from her as she sat, composed and unbothered. All eyes now lingered on her, some filled with admiration, others with newfound respect, but none were more stunned than Lisa, who stood frozen, her tray trembling slightly in her hands. A moment passed before Lisa managed to gather herself enough to approach Amara's seat, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and regret. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat, her usual confidence replaced by an anxious hesitancy. She forced a smile, one that was more apologetic than polite. "Ms. Johnson," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize." Amara looked up at her, her expression warm but measured, offering no immediate comfort or absolution. "Didn't realize what?" she asked gently, her tone neutral yet filled with a quiet depth that made Lisa's discomfort deepen. Her eyes held Lisa's, unflinching, expectant, as though inviting her to truly reflect on her actions. Lisa swallowed, visibly flustered. "I mean, I didn't know you were who you are," she stammered, her voice faltering under Amara's calm, piercing gaze. "I'm so sorry if my service wasn't up to standard. I just..." She trailed off, unsure how to excuse the subtle dismissiveness that had marked her interactions with Amara throughout the flight. Amara held Lisa's gaze a moment longer, a quiet pause heavy with meaning. Then, with a composed sigh, she closed her notebook and placed it neatly in her bag. "Lisa," she said, her voice firm yet gentle, "it shouldn't matter who I am. Every passenger deserves respect and courtesy. Don't you agree?" Lisa's face flushed with realization, her shoulders sinking slightly as she absorbed Amara's words. There was no anger in Amara's tone, but her calm disappointment seemed to weigh on Lisa far more than any harsh rebuke could have. Lisa nodded, struggling to hold back a flood of embarrassed apologies. "Yes, of course. You're absolutely right," she murmured, her voice filled with remorse. Amara nodded, a faint, kind smile softening her expression. "I hope this can be a learning moment for you, Lisa," she said softly. "It's easy to make assumptions based on appearances, but it's just as easy to choose respect instead." The words settled over Lisa, a quiet truth that seemed to humble her. She nodded again, her face a mix of regret and understanding, as though a door had opened in her mind, one she hadn't known was closed. "Thank you," she whispered, genuinely, the sincerity in her voice unmistakable. Amara gave her a small nod, signaling that the matter was done. She then turned her gaze back toward the window, her calm composure returning, her presence a steady reminder of the strength in humility and respect. The lesson, unspoken yet profoundly clear, lingered in the air as the plane began its descent, leaving Lisa to process the depth of what had just unfolded and the quiet, lasting impact of one simple but powerful interaction. As the plane began its descent, Lisa returned to the galley, her mind racing with a mixture of embarrassment and introspection. She leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath as she replayed each moment of her interactions with Amara, now seeing every small slight, every dismissive gesture, in a harsh new light. Her thoughts swirled with regret, and a heavy weight of self-reflection settled upon her. She glanced toward the cabin, where Amara sat with her usual calm, looking out the window as if the entire exchange had already faded into the distance. Nearby, Mark approached her, noticing the strain in her expression. He gave her a gentle, understanding look, as if he had seen everything that had transpired and knew exactly what was going through her mind. Without judgment, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes we forget the impact of our actions," he said quietly, his voice kind yet firm. "It's easy to fall into patterns, especially when we're tired or distracted, but every person on this plane deserves our best." Lisa nodded, her eyes cast downward. I didn't think..." She paused, struggling to articulate the uncomfortable truth she was now realizing. "I just assumed," she finished quietly, almost to herself. "I treated her like she wasn't important." Mark gave her a sympathetic nod, his hand still resting on her shoulder in a comforting gesture. "We've all made mistakes," he said gently. "But the important thing is to learn from them. You have a chance to do better." Lisa took a deep breath, absorbing his words, feeling the sting of her own actions in a way she hadn't expected. She looked back toward Amara's seat, seeing her now with a different perspective. Not as a CEO, not as someone powerful, but simply as a person, deserving of the respect she should have given all along. The lesson hit home, and she felt a renewed sense of responsibility, a determination to treat everyone with the same respect, regardless of titles or appearances. The plane touched down smoothly, the wheels skimming the runway as the passengers began to stir, gathering their belongings and preparing to disembark. Lisa's heart beat heavily as she thought of how to end this journey with the dignity it deserved. As the plane rolled to a stop, she decided to approach Amara one last time, this time with genuine humility. When the seatbelt sign turned off, Lisa walked back down the aisle, her posture slightly hunched with the weight of her reflection. She stopped by Amara's seat and took a steadying breath, her voice quiet and sincere. "Ms. Johnson," she began, meeting Amara's gaze directly. "Thank you for giving me the chance to see things differently. I'll remember this lesson." Amara looked at her for a long moment, her eyes softening as she recognized the genuine regret in Lisa's face. She gave a slight nod, her voice gentle. "Growth is what matters, Lisa. Take this as a beginning." With a small, appreciative smile, Amara extended her hand, a gesture of closure. Lisa shook it, feeling a surge of gratitude and humility. As she watched Amara walk away down the aisle, disappearing into the crowd of passengers, Lisa felt a quiet resolve settle within her, a promise to herself that she would never let appearances cloud her respect for another human being again. The lesson stayed with her, deep and humbling, as the flight came to its end. As the passengers began filing out, Lisa remained in her spot, watching the steady stream of people, each with their own lives, stories, and value beyond what she could see at a glance. Amara's words echoed in her mind, weaving through her thoughts with a resonance that felt almost like a mantra. Growth is what matters. She felt humbled, almost as though a veil had been lifted, showing her how easy it was to overlook the dignity in every interaction. Mark joined her as the last passengers left, giving her a gentle, knowing smile. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his gaze filled with kindness and understanding. Lisa nodded, though her eyes were misty, a sign of the internal shift she was undergoing. "I didn't just learn a lesson in service," she admitted softly, glancing down at her hands, now folded neatly in front of her. "I learned a lesson in humanity. I thought I knew how to treat people, but I was so wrong." Mark patted her shoulder, his expression both compassionate and approving. "The best lessons aren't always comfortable," he replied, "but they're the ones that stay with us the longest." Lisa nodded, letting his words settle around her like a comforting embrace. She felt a deep, newfound respect for Mark, for Amara, and, surprisingly, for herself. She recognized that acknowledging her mistake was the first step toward real change. As the crew prepared the cabin for the next flight, Lisa moved with renewed purpose, her interactions with her teammates and remaining passengers marked by a warmth she hadn't truly understood before. When a young family boarded early for the next flight, Lisa crouched down to help a small child with his seatbelt, smiling and chatting with him gently. She offered assistance to a woman struggling with her bags, making sure she felt comfortable and welcomed. She wasn't simply performing her duties now, she was engaging with genuine respect, with the memory of Amara's calm, unyielding presence guiding her actions. Each interaction felt like a chance to honor the lesson she had learned, a chance to carry forward the message that every passenger, every person, deserved respect and kindness, no matter who they were or what they looked like. As the new flight prepared to take off, Lisa felt lighter, more purposeful. She knew she couldn't undo the mistakes she had made, but she could carry forward a commitment to never repeat them. And with that silent promise, she moved gracefully through the aisles, each act of service now a small gesture of redemption, a quiet tribute to the power of humility and the strength of unseen grace. As the cabin settled into its rhythm for the new flight, Lisa found herself reflecting on Amara's unspoken impact, each moment of service now filled with a heightened awareness and purpose. The hum of the engines blended into the background as she moved through the cabin, attending to passengers with genuine warmth. Each smile, Each interaction felt like a small act of renewal, a way to affirm her newfound understanding. Every gesture carried a depth she hadn't realized before, and it wasn't lost on her how different she felt performing even the simplest tasks. In a quiet moment, Mark approached her again, his expression thoughtful. "I can see something's changed in you," he said, his voice carrying a hint of pride. "It's rare for someone to take feedback to heart the way you have." Lisa offered a soft smile, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I don't think I realized how important these interactions were, not until today. It's strange, isn't it? How one person, one moment, can make you rethink everything." Mark nodded, understanding completely. True growth often comes from moments like these. It's how we learn who we are and who we want to be. Lisa's gaze drifted out the small cabin window as she absorbed his words. She thought of Amara, the quiet strength and calm authority she had carried, the way she had let Lisa come to her own understanding without force or anger. Amara's patience and grace had allowed Lisa to see herself clearly, to confront her own biases and assumptions. That reflection, uncomfortable as it had been, had gifted her with a profound clarity. As the flight continued, Lisa moved through her duties with renewed intention. She made it a point to look each passenger in the eye, to offer them her full attention and kindness, regardless of appearances or assumptions. The small acts felt meaningful now, each one a way to rebuild the trust and respect she had failed to show before. In one row, an elderly man nodded appreciatively as she helped adjust his blanket. In another, a young woman smiled warmly when Lisa brought her an extra cup of tea. These interactions, simple and genuine, began to fill her with a quiet satisfaction, a sense that she was truly embodying the values she had so recently neglected. The gratitude in the passengers' faces felt like small, steady affirmations, reminders of the powerful connection that respectful service could create. With every step down the aisle, Lisa carried Amara's words and presence with her, feeling their impact settle into her very core. The transformation felt permanent, a lesson etched into her being. As the flight neared its end, she realized she was no longer the same person who had started that morning, dismissive and rushed. She had been humbled, and through that humility had found a deeper, more genuine version of herself. When the plane finally touched down, Lisa helped passengers disembark with warmth and gratitude, her words softer, her actions kinder. She no longer saw just a crowd of strangers. She saw individuals, each one worthy of her respect, each interaction a chance to reflect the change within her. As the last passenger left, Lisa took a deep breath, feeling lighter, as if Amara's silent guidance had lifted her toward a new purpose. Mark, standing beside her, gave a nod of acknowledgement, as if sensing the quiet transformation she had undergone. And as the cabin emptied, Lisa felt not just the end of a flight, but the beginning of a renewed commitment, a promise to herself and to every passenger she would meet from that day forward. As the final passenger stepped off the plane, Lisa stood in the quiet cabin, absorbing the stillness. The empty seats and hushed aisles felt symbolic, a blank canvas, a chance to start anew. She gathered her thoughts, her heart full of gratitude for the unexpected lesson she had received. Amara's calm presence lingered in her mind, her words echoing softly. "Growth is what matters." This simple phrase had reshaped how she saw her role, turning a routine job into something meaningful. After a moment, she began the post-flight cleanup, her movements deliberate, a sense of reverence in every action. Mark joined her, working alongside her in a comfortable silence. At one point, he looked over with a small, encouraging smile, and Lisa returned it, feeling as though she had gained not just a colleague but an ally in her journey of growth. As she moved through the aisles, she noticed something small and unexpected. Amara's notebook, left neatly on her seat. Lisa paused, unsure whether to touch it, as if it held a sacred quality. Taking a steadying breath, she carefully picked it up, flipping it open to the first page. Her eyes widened slightly as she scanned the neat, thoughtful notes within. Amara hadn't just been observing her service. She had documented her reflections on the airline itself, noting improvements, suggestions, and even praise for areas that stood out. Each line revealed Amara's attention to detail and her commitment to the company's growth. Then, on one of the final pages, Lisa found a brief note, written in elegant, flowing handwriting. "Respect is the foundation of service. We serve not just as employees, but as people, connecting to others with kindness. Remember that every interaction, no matter how small, is an opportunity to uplift and honor another human being." Lisa read the words slowly, feeling the weight of them settle over her like a gentle reminder of the values she now held close. It was as though Amara had left this message intentionally, knowing Lisa might find it, as if passing down a quiet but powerful lesson. The words felt personal, meant for her alone, a final piece of guidance from someone who had unknowingly become her mentor. With a renewed sense of purpose, Lisa tucked the notebook into her own bag, intending to return it to Amara personally. But beyond that, she felt an urge to carry those words forward in every action, every flight, and every interaction with a passenger. She understood now that respect was not just part of her job, it was the essence of it. As she prepared to leave the plane, she walked slowly through the empty aisles, feeling a profound gratitude for this unexpected journey of growth. Amara had shown her the importance of humility, of seeing people as they were, beyond assumptions or status. And in doing so, she had given Lisa a gift, a new sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of herself, and the realization that growth was indeed what mattered most. When Lisa stepped off the plane, she felt a quiet confidence and peace within her, a sense of readiness for whatever lay ahead. She knew that this lesson would stay with her, shaping her into the kind of person and flight attendant she aspired to be. With one final grateful look back at the plane, she walked into the airport, her heart full, her mind clear, and her purpose renewed. As Lisa walked through the bustling terminal, she held Amara's notebook close to her chest, feeling its weight like a symbol of the new understanding she carried within herself. The energy of the airport swirled around her, voices and footsteps merging into a steady hum, but for the first time, Lisa felt truly grounded, as if the lessons she'd learned had become a part of her core. She made her way toward the airline's executive lounge, where she hoped to find Amara and return the notebook in person. After a brief conversation with the receptionist, she was directed to a quiet corner of the lounge, where Amara sat, relaxed and poised, sipping a cup of tea. Lisa hesitated for a moment, taking in the sight of the woman who had unknowingly transformed her outlook. The hesitation faded quickly, replaced by a sense of purpose, and she walked forward with a quiet determination. Amara looked up as Lisa approached, her expression softening with recognition and a hint of warmth. Lisa extended the notebook to her, hands steady, though her voice held a slight tremor as she spoke. "Ms. Johnson, I believe this belongs to you. I found it after the flight," she said, her words infused with both respect and a hint of gratitude that went beyond the mere return of a misplaced item. Amara took the notebook with a gentle nod, her eyes studying Lisa with a knowing kindness that seemed to see right into her. "Thank you, Lisa," she replied, her tone calm and appreciative. She opened the notebook briefly, flipping through the pages as if checking that her thoughts were still intact, then looked up, her gaze meeting Lisa's directly. "And how did the rest of your flight go?" Lisa smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from her. "It went differently, better. I feel like I see things in a new light," she admitted, the words coming easily. "I didn't realize how much each interaction mattered. I've been given a new understanding of what it means to serve with respect." Amara's eyes held a spark of approval, and a subtle smile touched her lips. "That's a valuable insight," she said. "One that will not only change how you approach others, but will change you as well." Lisa nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude that seemed too large to put into words. "I wanted to thank you," she said softly, "for showing me what I couldn't see before. It's a lesson I won't forget." Amara inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the sincerity in Lisa's words. "Growth often begins with discomfort," she replied. "It's a sign you're moving in the right direction. Remember that each person you meet is deserving of the same respect, regardless of titles or appearances." The words resonated deeply with Lisa, filling her with a sense of purpose that felt both humbling and uplifting. She knew that this moment, this brief but transformative encounter, would shape her actions from that day forward. She looked at Amara with a newfound admiration, a quiet gratitude for the unexpected mentor who had entered her life. With a final, respectful nod, Lisa stepped back, allowing Amara her space but feeling as if she were leaving with a gift far greater than anything she had given. As she exited the lounge, she carried herself with a renewed sense of pride, not pride in her position, but in the person she was becoming. As Lisa left the lounge, the airport's familiar hustle felt different, almost brighter. She walked with a purpose, her steps steady, each one echoing with the new understanding she carried. She felt lighter, as if she had shed a layer of herself that had held her back, and replaced it with something more meaningful, a commitment to respect, empathy, and self-awareness. In the days that followed, Lisa returned to her routine, but everything about her work felt transformed. From her first flight back, she greeted each passenger with a warmth that was no longer rehearsed but sincere, seeing each person as a unique individual with their own story. She no longer moved on autopilot, no longer filtered people into categories based on appearance or mannerisms. Instead, she engaged fully, allowing herself to be present in each moment, to see every passenger as deserving of her complete attention and respect. Passengers noticed the change. A mother with a small child thanked Lisa for her patience and kindness. Her eyes filled with gratitude as Lisa helped them settle in, even finding a small blanket to make the child more comfortable. An older gentleman seated in an economy aisle remarked on her genuine smile as she handed him a glass of water, her interaction with him as warm as it was with passengers in first class. Each act of service, small as it was, felt infused with purpose, each smile and gesture a reflection of the lessons Amara had instilled in her. Her colleagues noticed too. Mark, who had witnessed her initial realization, observed her with a proud, knowing smile, occasionally offering her a quiet nod as they worked side by side. Some crew members even approached her, curious about what had sparked this change. Lisa, in turn, shared her experience honestly, recounting the story of the CEO who had taught her the power of humility and respect without a single harsh word. Her story became an inspiration among the team, a gentle reminder of the importance of empathy, especially in the service industry. Months passed, and Lisa continued to embody the values Amara had so subtly imparted. She found herself thriving, not just as a flight attendant, but as a person, the small changes in her work spilling over into her personal life. She listened more closely to friends, offered more compassion in her daily interactions, and approached challenges with patience and humility. One day during a layover in a quiet airport lounge, Lisa received a message from the airline's headquarters. It was an invitation to attend a special training program designed for promising employees to advance in their careers. The invitation was signed by Amara Johnson herself, a reminder of the quiet but powerful guidance that had set her on this path. Lisa felt a wave of emotion as she read the invitation, recognizing it not only as an opportunity, but as a testament to the journey she had undergone. She knew she would carry Amara's lesson into this next phase of her life, committed to becoming not just a better employee, but a better person, one who valued the dignity of every individual she encountered. As she looked out over the busy terminal from the lounge window, Lisa felt a profound sense of purpose and gratitude. The world below, bustling with travelers of every background, each with their own story, was a constant reminder of the power of humility and respect. And as she prepared to embark on this new chapter, Lisa knew with certainty that the lessons she had learned would guide her, always, toward the person she aspired to be. The weeks leading up to the training were filled with excitement, and a renewed sense of dedication for Lisa. She studied diligently, reading through the airline's policies, values, and customer service guidelines with a fresh perspective. Every word felt meaningful now, resonating with the personal transformation she had experienced. This wasn't just about career advancement. It was an opportunity to deepen her understanding of what it meant to lead with empathy and to serve with respect, just as Amara had shown her. On the day of the training, Lisa entered the headquarters with a sense of anticipation. The building was sleek and modern, filled with professionals who bustled through the halls with purpose. Lisa felt a mix of nerves and excitement, but she grounded herself, remembering the lessons that had brought her here. She wasn't there simply to advance her career. She was there to learn, grow, and carry forward the values that had changed her. As she entered the training room, Lisa was surprised to see Amara seated at the head of the table, speaking quietly with a few of the other participants. Amara looked up and their eyes met, a flicker of recognition and warmth passing between them. Amara gave her a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of how far Lisa had come since that pivotal flight. Lisa felt a swell of pride mixed with humility, knowing that she was here in part because of the quiet guidance this woman had given her. The training began with discussions on leadership and customer experience, focusing on how to create meaningful, respectful interactions with every customer. Amara led the session with the same calm authority Lisa remembered, her words resonant with wisdom and insight. She shared stories of her own experiences, times when she had faced challenges and learned to grow from them. Each story carried a subtle reminder of the values she held dear: humility, respect, and the power of seeing others as individuals, not just as faces in a crowd. When it was Lisa's turn to speak, she shared her own story of transformation, recounting the moment she had realized her assumptions and biases, and how Amara's quiet example had opened her eyes. Her voice was steady, filled with honesty and vulnerability as she spoke of the lessons she had learned. The room listened intently, and as she finished, she could see in their faces a sense of connection and understanding. It was a humbling experience, knowing that her story might inspire others to look inward, just as she had. Amara nodded approvingly when Lisa finished, her eyes conveying a sense of pride and respect. True leadership, Amara said to the group, her gaze resting on Lisa, isn't about authority or titles. It's about integrity, empathy, and the willingness to learn. Growth isn't always comfortable, but it's essential. The words settled over the room, a profound silence following her statement. Lisa felt the impact of those words deeply, knowing they had come from someone who embodied them fully. She realized then that Amara had not only guided her through that pivotal flight, but had also shown her what it meant to lead with heart, to treat each person as deserving of respect and dignity. As the training session came to a close, Lisa felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunity, but for the journey that had brought her here. She knew that this experience was another step in her path, a way to honor the lessons she had learned and carry them forward. When the session ended, Amara approached Lisa, extending her hand. "I'm proud of you, Lisa," she said, her voice warm. "You've come a long way, and I believe you'll continue to grow, not just as a professional, but as a person." Lisa shook her hand, her eyes bright with gratitude. "Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Your guidance has meant more to me than I can express. I'll carry these lessons with me, always." As Lisa walked out of the headquarters that day, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She understood now that her journey wasn't just about her career. It was about becoming the kind of person who could make a difference in the lives of others, one interaction at a time. And with every step she took, she felt the quiet, steady presence of Amara's influence, guiding her forward, reminding her that growth, respect, and kindness were the true marks of success. As Lisa left the headquarters, the crisp air filled her lungs, refreshing and grounding her in a way she hadn't felt before. She paused for a moment outside, letting the day's events sink in, feeling an overwhelming gratitude not only for Amara's mentorship, but also for the journey that had led her here. The path hadn't been straightforward. It had required her to confront her assumptions and face parts of herself she hadn't realized needed change. But that discomfort had molded her, shaped her into someone she now took pride in being. In the days that followed, Lisa returned to work with a renewed purpose, each shift an opportunity to implement what she'd learned. She found herself drawn to the quieter passengers, the ones who often faded into the background, ensuring they felt seen and valued. A soft-spoken older woman with a nervous demeanor, a young man traveling alone for the first time, a mother juggling a restless toddler. Lisa connected with each one, offering her genuine attention and care. She found that the smallest gestures, a warm smile, an extra blanket, a moment of patience, had the power to transform not only her passengers' experience, but also her own. One afternoon, during a particularly busy flight, she noticed one of her younger colleagues, Sarah, struggling to manage the demands of a bustling cabin. Passengers were calling for help, a coffee spill needed cleaning, and tension was building. Lisa watched Sarah, recognizing the look of overwhelm that she herself had often felt. With a calm smile, Lisa stepped in, gently guiding Sarah through each task, showing her how to prioritize with grace under pressure. She shared small tips, how to make each passenger feel acknowledged even in the midst of chaos, how to keep her tone steady and respectful, even when she was stretched thin. At one point, as they worked side by side, Sarah glanced at Lisa, admiration shining in her eyes. "How do you stay so calm, so connected with everyone? I always feel like I'm just trying to keep up," she confessed. Lisa chuckled softly, recalling her own journey. "I wasn't always this way," she admitted. "But I had someone show me the importance of respect and presence. It's not about getting everything perfect. It's about showing each person they matter. Even on the busiest flights, each passenger deserves a moment of our kindness." Sarah nodded, absorbing Lisa's words, visibly comforted. As they continued through the shift, Lisa felt a new sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy in passing on what she had learned, in helping someone else see the value of the lessons she herself had once struggled to understand. With each shift, Lisa became known among her team not just for her expertise, but for her kindness and empathy. She noticed that her interactions inspired her colleagues to approach their own roles with the same sense of purpose, creating an atmosphere of respect and unity within the crew. They began to see one another not merely as coworkers, but as a team with a shared commitment to serving others wholeheartedly. One evening, as Lisa wrapped up a long flight, she received a message from Amara. It was brief, but it carried the same quiet strength Lisa had come to associate with her mentor. "Keep leading with respect. True change begins with those who carry it forward." Lisa read the message twice, feeling a warmth spread through her. She realized that Amara's mentorship wasn't just a chapter in her story. It was a foundation upon which she could build, a guiding force she would carry with her, shaping every interaction, every lesson she passed on. In that moment, Lisa knew that her journey was far from over. She was part of a legacy of respect and kindness, one that Amara had entrusted her to continue. And as she walked down the empty cabin, closing each overhead compartment with care, she felt a sense of peace. She had found her purpose, not just in her career but in her life, grounded in the quiet, transformative power of respect. And with every flight, every passenger, she would honor that purpose, carrying Amara's lesson forward, one small act of kindness at a time. Months passed, and Lisa's influence continued to ripple through her team, her steady presence becoming a quiet pillar of support for her colleagues and passengers alike. She found that the values she had adopted, respect, empathy, and humility, had transformed not only her work life but her personal life as well. She became a mentor to newer attendants, guiding them with patience and compassion, sharing the lessons she had learned in ways that resonated with them on a personal level. One day, during a layover in a bustling city, Lisa was approached by Sarah, the young colleague she had helped months before. Sarah's face was bright with excitement, a letter clutched in her hand. "Lisa, I wanted you to be the first to know," she said, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. I've been accepted into the airline's mentorship program. I applied because of you, because of everything you taught me." Lisa's heart swelled with pride, and she reached out, pulling Sarah into a warm embrace. "That's wonderful, Sarah," she said, her voice filled with genuine happiness. "You're going to be an amazing mentor." Sarah pulled back, her eyes shining. "It's because of the example you set. I never really understood what it meant to lead with kindness until I saw you do it." Lisa felt a surge of gratitude, realizing how far she had come and how her journey was now inspiring others. She thought of Amara, the quiet mentor who had sparked this transformation in her, and felt a renewed commitment to honoring that legacy. She understood now that every moment of mentorship, every interaction built on respect, was a continuation of the values Amara had instilled in her. As the months rolled on, Lisa found herself receiving new responsibilities within the airline. She was invited to speak at training sessions, sharing her story and the impact of small, consistent acts of kindness. Her words resonated with the trainees, many of whom had only just begun their journey, and saw Lisa as a beacon of what they aspired to become. She became a part of the airline's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, where she advocated for training programs that emphasized empathy and understanding, knowing firsthand how these qualities could transform a team. One afternoon, while preparing for a presentation, Lisa received a message from Amara. It was an invitation to join the airline's leadership team, a role that would allow her to shape the very culture of the airline. Lisa was speechless, a wave of emotions washing over her. She thought back to that first flight with Amara, the quiet yet powerful lesson she had been given, and felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. Accepting the role felt like a natural continuation of the journey she had started, a way to expand the reach of Amara's influence through her own work. When Lisa stepped into her new role, she carried with her every lesson, every humbling moment, and every small act of kindness that had defined her transformation. She became a leader who listened, who valued every voice, who saw each person as deserving of respect, regardless of title or background. She knew that her influence could help foster an environment where every employee felt valued, where the lessons of empathy and humility would be woven into the fabric of the company. And as Lisa continued her journey, she often thought of Amara, not just as a mentor, but as a silent partner in this legacy of respect. Together, through the lives they touched and the changes they inspired, they had set into motion something lasting, a quiet revolution built on simple, enduring values. Lisa knew that in every flight she took, every colleague she supported, and every passenger she served, she was honoring that legacy, carrying it forward with grace, humility, and unshakable purpose. And with every new chapter, she knew that growth would always be at the heart of her journey. As Lisa settled into her new leadership role, she began her days with a ritual of reflection, reminding herself of the journey that had brought her here. Each morning, before diving into her responsibilities, she would pause to recall Amara's words, allowing them to center her and guide her intentions. She approached her new position with a spirit of humility, understanding that true leadership wasn't about authority, but about creating an environment where every individual felt valued and empowered. One of Lisa's first initiatives as part of the leadership team was to introduce a program called Moments of Connection, designed to help crew members recognize and honor the importance of each interaction with passengers and colleagues. She led workshops sharing stories from her own journey, encouraging attendants to see their roles not just as jobs, but as opportunities to make a difference, no matter how small. These workshops quickly became a staple of the company's training, each session filled with lively discussions, personal insights, and the enthusiasm of attendants who felt inspired by Lisa's story. Word of the program spread, and soon Lisa was invited to speak at industry conferences, sharing her philosophy of leading with respect and the transformative power of empathy in customer service. She spoke of her own growth, of the moment that had opened her eyes on that flight with Amara, and how it had reshaped her entire outlook. Her speeches resonated with audiences, her words grounding the often overlooked aspects of human connection in the context of business success and customer loyalty. She became known as a leader with a unique vision, someone who embodied the idea that kindness and respect could drive real change. Amara watched Lisa's progress from afar, occasionally sending her quiet words of encouragement, each message a reminder of the foundation upon which Lisa's growth was built. One day, Amara reached out with an invitation. She was organizing a leadership summit for the airline's top executives and wanted Lisa to co-host. It was an honor that filled Lisa with both pride and gratitude, knowing that Amara still saw her as a valuable partner in fostering the airline's culture. At the summit, Lisa and Amara led sessions on leadership, respect, and the power of a people-centered approach to business. They crafted exercises that allowed leaders to experience empathy firsthand, to reflect on how each decision impacted not only the company, but also the people who formed its foundation. The energy in the room was palpable, and Lisa could see the impact they were making, the subtle shifts in perspective that might carry forward into lasting changes. During a break, Amara took Lisa aside, her gaze filled with pride and a hint of warmth. "You've exceeded every expectation, Lisa," she said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "The work you're doing is more than I could have imagined when I first met you. You're helping create a legacy that will outlast both of us." Lisa felt a swell of emotion, knowing how deeply Amara's words resonated. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that flight. You showed me that respect isn't just a value, it's a way of life." Amara nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Remember, Lisa, growth is a journey without an end. There will always be room to learn, to deepen your understanding, to expand your empathy. That's what makes this path so meaningful." As the summit concluded, Lisa felt a profound sense of purpose, her commitment to this journey stronger than ever. She knew that the lessons she had learned from Amara would continue to guide her, anchoring her in moments of challenge and uncertainty. And as she returned to her daily work, she carried forward this vision, leading her team with an open heart, ready to pass on the wisdom and respect that had transformed her own life. In the months that followed, Lisa's influence continued to grow, inspiring not only her team but others across the industry. She became a mentor, a speaker, and a role model. Yet she remained grounded in the simple truth that had started it all, that every interaction, no matter how brief, held the potential to uplift, to respect, and to honor the human spirit. With each new challenge, each new opportunity, Lisa knew that her journey was ongoing. She embraced it with gratitude, carrying forward Amara's legacy, now woven seamlessly into her own. And with every step she took, she felt the quiet, steadfast strength of the values that had transformed her. Values she now had the privilege to share with the world, one meaningful connection at a time. As Lisa continued in her role, she witnessed firsthand how the changes she had set in motion began to ripple outward, transforming not just her immediate team, but the broader culture of the airline. Crew members began embracing the Moments of Connection program wholeheartedly, sharing stories of meaningful interactions with passengers and with each other, creating a camaraderie rooted in empathy and respect. Small moments of kindness started to define the airline's service, crew members helping nervous first-time flyers, remembering regular passengers by name, and supporting one another on long, tiring flights. One afternoon, Lisa received a letter from a passenger, a mother traveling alone with her young daughter, who had experienced a minor health scare mid-flight. In her letter, the mother expressed gratitude for the flight crew's kindness and attentiveness, noting how they had gone above and beyond to ensure her daughter was safe and calm. "Your crew made us feel like family," the mother wrote. "In a moment of worry, I found comfort and care that went beyond what I could have expected." Reading the letter, Lisa felt a surge of pride and fulfillment. She saw in it a reflection of the values she had worked so hard to nurture, values that were now part of the airline's identity. This moment, one among many, reinforced her belief in the power of genuine connection and the lasting impact of small acts of compassion. She shared the letter with her team, reminding them that their dedication made a difference in people's lives in ways they might not always see, but that mattered profoundly. Not long after, the airline announced its annual award ceremony, recognizing employees who had made exceptional contributions to the company's mission. To Lisa's surprise, she was nominated for the Leadership with Heart Award, an honor given to leaders who embodied the airline's values and inspired others through their actions. On the night of the ceremony, surrounded by her colleagues, Lisa felt a mix of pride and humility. When her name was called, she stepped up to the podium, her heart pounding with emotion. Standing before her peers, she took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. "This honor doesn't just belong to me," she began, her voice steady but filled with warmth. "It belongs to every person who has shown kindness, empathy, and respect, even in the smallest ways. These values are what make us strong as a team, and they're what connect us to the passengers we serve." She paused, her thoughts drifting to Amara, who sat in the audience, a proud smile on her face. "I was once shown the true meaning of respect by someone who saw my potential before I could see it myself," Lisa continued, her gaze meeting Amara's. "And I've carried that lesson with me, passing it on in the hope that each of us can see the worth in others, no matter who they are." The room was silent, filled with the weight of her words, a shared understanding of the values she had brought to life. As she stepped down from the stage, Lisa felt a profound sense of gratitude for her journey, for the lessons she'd learned, and for the people who had helped her along the way. In the days following the ceremony, Lisa returned to her work with renewed energy, embracing every interaction as an opportunity to further the legacy she had helped build. She continued to mentor her team, guiding new attendants with the same compassion and insight that Amara had shown her. And though the title of Leader with Heart now officially belonged to her, Lisa understood that it was a title she held in trust, a role she fulfilled not through words but through actions, each day recommitting to the simple, profound values that had transformed her life. With each passing year, Lisa's influence continued to touch lives across the airline, her journey of growth and respect woven into the very fabric of the company's culture. And as she looked to the future, she felt a quiet, enduring joy, knowing that her story was now part of a larger legacy, one that would inspire others long after she had taken her last flight. The path of respect and empathy was hers to walk, but its impact would carry forward, expanding with every heart it touched, creating a legacy of kindness that would soar far beyond her. Years later, as Lisa prepared to retire, she found herself reflecting on the remarkable journey that had brought her to this moment. The airline she was leaving behind had transformed, with a culture deeply rooted in the values she and Amara had nurtured together. Moments of Connection was now a celebrated program across the company, and countless crew members, inspired by Lisa's story, had embraced it as a guiding principle in their daily interactions. The legacy of respect, empathy, and genuine connection was woven into the fabric of the airline, touching every corner of the organization. On her final day, Lisa was greeted with warmth and gratitude from colleagues past and present who gathered to celebrate her career. Amid the handshakes, hugs, and kind words, Lisa felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. She knew that this celebration wasn't simply for her years of service, but for the impact she had made, the lives she had touched, and the lessons she had shared. As a final tribute, Amara, who had since moved into an advisory role within the company, approached the podium to share a few words. Her voice was steady, but there was a warmth and admiration in her tone that resonated deeply. Lisa has been more than a leader. She has been a living example of what it means to lead with heart. She has shown us that true strength lies in humility, that real influence comes from empathy, and that respect is the most powerful form of service. Lisa's legacy will live on in every crew member who carries her lessons forward. The room filled with applause, and Lisa felt tears well in her eyes, touched by Amara's words and the gratitude that filled the space. When Amara finished, she joined Lisa, handing her a small, wrapped gift. Inside was a beautiful engraved compass, the inscription reading, "For the journeys you have guided, and the hearts you have touched. Holding the compass, Lisa felt a deep, lasting sense of peace. She understood that her impact, though tied to her work, extended far beyond it. Her legacy was woven into the lives of the people she had mentored, the crew members she had inspired, and the countless passengers who had felt seen and respected because of her values. As the celebration drew to a close, Lisa took a final, quiet walk through the plane she had called home for so many years. She ran her hand over the familiar seats, the aisles where she had once found herself, transformed by a quiet, powerful lesson that had reshaped her life. The gratitude she felt was profound, knowing that the journey of respect and empathy she had started would continue, carried forward by others who believed, as she did, in the power of small, meaningful connections. Stepping off the plane for the last time, Lisa felt a quiet certainty that the path she had walked was only the beginning of something larger. Her legacy of kindness and respect would live on, inspiring countless others to carry the same values into their work, their lives, and the world beyond. With a final glance back, a gentle smile on her face, Lisa left, her heart full, knowing she had made a difference that would soar far beyond her time, carried forward by every person her story had touched. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.